Welcome to episode 10 of the Audio Fundamentals course. With this episode, we're going to branch out of some of the more technical, involved stuff and look a little bit at some possible priorities that someone doing recording and working with audio might have, which means that we are venturing a little bit outside of the realm of facts and getting a little bit more into opinions. I hope that this will facilitate some discussion because everyone's going to have a different opinion on some of these ideas. So I'm going to sketch out what, at least for me, are the top priorities of recording music. First of all, you've got to have a good song and you've got to have a good vocal performance. Most people who are not musicians think of music as pretty much a singer with a beat, and they don't really notice very much in the way of subtlety in the instrumentals. So it's going to be almost all about the vocal and about how good the song is, how much it resonates with your audience. Second, after the songwriting and the vocal performance comes the arranging and engineering skill. Arranging being the musical part of it, engineering being the technical part of it. After that, we get to more practical and gear-based issues such as the acoustics in the room and the transducers, in other words, the microphones and speakers used. And then after that, other pieces of audio gear and software. These four things kind of group themselves together into three different categories. The first is the art of it. The arranging and the engineering skill is like the craft or the technique. How do we do this the best way? The other stuff is the tools of the trade. What is the equipment that you're using? So let's start with a brief discussion of songwriting and vocal performance. So some things that I've noticed that are important issues in songwriting and vocal performance is sincerity and fearlessness, accessibility versus originality, and expression and technique. Let's look at each of those in turn. With sincerity and fearlessness, I think that people don't always respond to just someone being the best performer, but rather to someone really meaning what they're doing. If the songwriter has felt an emotion, most other people have felt that at some time and can connect with it. It's important for a songwriter and a singer to have confidence, which is not the same thing as arrogance or cockiness. Rather, it's an absence of fear. Or, if the person is feeling fear, then having courage. In other words, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Or, of course, you can just do engineering and play instruments and let other people write and sing the songs, and that's perfectly fine too. Something else to keep in mind in all forms of art, whether it be songwriting or the choices that you make as an engineer, is that, in my mind at least, there is a kind of a continuum of accessibility to originality. On the one side, if you go too far in that direction, you get things that are trite, that are cliché, and that are predictable. On the extreme other side, you have something that is random and opaque, it's confusing. So if you go too far towards the accessible side, you're working with the lowest common denominator. People will roll their eyes at it. Meanwhile, on the other side of it, you've got the sort of tortured artist cliche who nobody understands. It might make sense if you set your goal somewhere in between these two extremes. Obviously, that is up to the artist. What I've seen as being more successful songs have generally been somewhere in between those two places. I'll just mention a few brief things about vocal expression and technique. One is that vocal technique is an athletic activity. It involves coordinating all sorts of muscles and getting your body into the habit of doing exactly the right thing. If you intend to sing, it's often a good idea to take some lessons, if for no other reason than just to get someone else's outside opinion on your voice. It's also important to consider that just because you feel something while you're singing doesn't necessarily mean others will pick up on it. If you've written a song, it might be that your own voice isn't the best voice to sing it, and in that case, it's good to be humble enough to find someone else to sing the song if you have to. So looking now at the next of our groups of priorities, we're looking at arranging and engineering skill, and this would be the craft, the know-how to do what you have to do. First is arranging, which is the musical side of making choices about what instruments to use, how to do harmonies, all that sorts of thing, and it can sometimes blur the boundaries with production and engineering. When you arrange a song, you're deciding how that piece of music is expressed. So that includes not only which instruments are going to be in there and when they come in and out, but it also includes the types of harmony, the tempo of the song, the key of the song, many other things like that. Here are a couple examples. I've written a very short melody and played simply the melody by itself on the piano. Here it is. And you could imagine probably a very simple harmony with that. Here's a slightly different arrangement. Same melody, but with some harmony at the end that's maybe not what your ear would expect. If you go further into the extremes of arranging, you're getting to the entire genre of the song. And obviously, there are limitless possibilities when it comes to that. Engineering production is simply knowing how to use the equipment well, the ability to make sensible choices as far as what equipment to use, and solving whatever problems come up. A certain MacGyver streak is often helpful in doing audio engineering. But probably the most important thing that serves the skills of engineering and production is just to have a well-trained ear and a knowledge of musical context. That'll enable you to get the recording to best serve the song, however that needs to happen. Next, we'll look at some of the tools, what you use to get the work done.